Thank you, Cynthia. 8:04 in the morning. Please welcome back to the program my good friend Doris Hobbs, she of the vintage knowledge that is going to blow your mind. Doris, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, Doris, I'm doing good, and I did not realize over the years we've known each other and different times you've been on the show that your amazing name, you take from your grandmother, and that explains a lot of like your vintage connection, if you will.
Yeah, and it's amazing because you don't realize how much power a name has, and when you finally connect the dots and you go, oh, that's why I dress vintage. It makes sense, right?
You absolutely do. And for people who are not familiar with your rich and love and fashion and all the different things you've done to promote the vintage look, talk about how this all evolved and how we can maybe get a little more vintage and mix and match and whatnot to develop our own style like you've done.
So for me, it was a transition. So when I turned 30, it was, the whole identity crisis of like, who am I, right? And so vintage fashion has always been a part of my life because, of course, being named after my grandmother and being inspired by vintage films and actresses of the 1950s. So for myself, it was like, I'm going to start mixing and matching. So I slowly, when I turned 30, started taking, standard, clothing from department stores and started mixing and matching my grandmother's rhinestone earrings or like a brooch or a vintage handbag because I already had those in my wardrobe because of my grandmother, obviously. So I just started mixing and matching it, and I was just like, wow, this is really cool. Then the gloves came. Then the vintage fur came. Then I sold my soul to vintage the day I put the vintage hat on. That was the day I was like, yep, this is me. This is who I am. And I love it. So I really feel like you have to do it in baby steps because if you do vintage full blown, it can look like a costume and we don't want that.
No, that's a really good point, is that the whole mixing and matching thing sounds good, but you need to sort of know your eras. One of the things that you underline, not only in your podcast, but also on your social media presence, you got to know how to mix and match, right? Or at least understand the eras so you can better do it.
Yes, for me, I knew the 1950s was the era that I wanted to model after and was inspired by. But Christian Dior's 1947 new look, that is when you get down to like the nitty and gritty on it, that is exactly my era, 1947, just because of what that whole entire look basically, it had. It had mystery, it had glamour, it was just beautiful. So if you know your era, because you can't really mix, I mean, you probably could. It might not turn out as well as you want, but you can't mix like the 40s and the 80s. And God bless anyone that does the 80s, because that is a very tough era. That is a very tough era. The music was amazing. The fashion, we can debate about that later.
I don't want to debate it because I think you would win that debate if you've ever seen any pictures from my high school scrapbook. That is not a pretty sight. But now, Doris, for people who are looking to fashion, to express themselves and do some of the stuff, like you said, you went through this transformation at around age 30. It's more than just about the actual clothing, right? It's about self-expression to some degree.
Yeah, I believe each day, we have the opportunity to basically bring positive change, not only in our lives or to others around us, but we have the opportunity to change our identity. I could be dressing 1940s today and then 1950s tomorrow and maybe 1980s the next day, which I probably wouldn't. But it's just, we get to be able to redefine our path and embellish ourselves in fashion that express our authentic self. And so I just say, let's just embrace an era gone by and glamour.
I love the way you do that. Now, for folks who want to embrace more Doris Hobbs, who want to get to know you, they want to follow you on social media, what's the best way to connect with you, Doris?
I would say my website, 𝒱𝒓𝒓.com. I will also be on Good Day Sacramento in April. So I am speaking in an estate sale company. So if anyone out there knows an estate sale company that would like to partner with me, I would love to have you on the show and we can go vintage shopping together.
Does that sound like fun? Vintage shopping with Doris Hobbs. That could be there's a giveaway for you. Awesome. Doris, I appreciate you, as always, for checking in this morning. Follow her on social media. She is a great follow.